Hey, what is up, mortals? Welcome to part 4 season 1. I just wanted to greet you guys by just saying, sit back and relax, you're in for a treat. So, we begin. How much did you hear? All Might asked Himiko. In a conference room, Toga, Vlad King, All Might and Principal Nezu sat down to discuss the secret that's been discovered by Toga. Himiko eavesdropped on Izuku and Bakugo's conversation. It looked bad, but her intentions were far from traitorous. Sekijiro was ready to stick by her and defend her from any accusations. All Might caught her listening to the two speak about his true form. Principal Nezu took it in his own hands to mediate and take the responsibility a principal should. I only heard that he was given power. I didn't know it's possible. She lowered her head in shame. Was that all you heard, young lady? Principal Nezu asked calmly. She nodded her head to signify that was all she heard. He then asked, "What were you doing sneaking around?" "I wanted to protect my friend. He was hurt earlier today and it's not the first time this happened." Embarrassed, she hid her eyes with her bangs to hide her bawling eyes. She felt in trouble. The blonde wondered what would happen next. What were they hiding? Why does All Might look like a skeleton? "You'll have to believe me, I didn't mean do anything bad." "We know you didn't. She's not at fault here. She told me earlier this morning that she had to protect a boy she liked, and I'm sure this is the same boy who was in critical condition during the mock battle, right?" "Yes, it's my fault that happened." Young Bakugo went a bit overboard during the exercise. He grabbed the bridge of his nose with his index finger and the tip of his thumb. "Young Toga, since you've already seen what I look like and you already heard what young Midoriya said, I might as well admit it." She picked up her head and turned it ever so slightly in confusion. All Might exposed his wound and the reasoning behind it, the origin of One for All and the constant battle with All for One, and especially the role his ward Midoriya played in this pursuit for peace. She couldn't believe all of this. It sounded like a cheap comic book series, especially what Izuku would have to do when the time comes. "I'll keep your secret, All Might." Everyone in the room sighed with relief and dismissed the meeting. Toga had to carry the responsibility of keeping such a huge secret. Her and Vlad King walked out to the gates of the school. "Himiko, I'm sorry for not being careful and introducing you to this. You should be focusing on becoming a hero and have fun." "But I am. I can handle this, Mr. Sekijiro." She smiled warmly at the only father figure she had and walked away to take in all of what happened to herself. She didn't know what to think. All of the girl walked down her normal route but noticed a familiar brown head of hair in front of her. She walked closer and Ochako looked back, hearing footsteps approaching her. She smiled, seeing that it was Himiko. "Hey, what happened? You left early." "I went to the bathroom and I got locked," and she lied, and Ochako looked at her with worry. "Are you okay?" "I couldn't imagine the smell being stuck in there for such a long time," she jokingly said, smiling warmly at her friend. The two walked each other home, and the next chapter of Toga's story has begun. Today's training will be a little different. You will have 3 instructors. Me, All Might, and another faculty member will be keeping tabs on you. It'll be a rescue training exercise. You'll be dealing with natural disasters, shipwrecks, stuff like that. Everyone reacted positively, but Aizawa looked irritated. "I'm not finished yet. What you wear in this exercise is up to you. I know you're excited about your costumes, but keep in mind you haven't gotten used to them yet. It might limit your abilities. This special training's at an off-campus facility, so we'll be taking a bus to get there." Everyone gathered outside and Bakugo's eyes met Himiko's, his looking defeated and angry, but not as angry as the other times he showed that emotion. The girl walks over to Ochako and Deku. The two were talking about his PE uniform. They all exchanged greetings and banter with one another until the bus arrived. The group of students entered the bus and it drove them all to the USJ building. "If we're pointing out the obvious, then there's something I want to say. About you, actually." Sue looked over to Izuku. "About me, Asui. I told you to call me Tsu." "Oh yeah, right. That power of yours, isn't it a lot like All Might's?" Toga's eyes widened. Eventually people were going to put 2 and 2 together, but she deflected the question with her incredible acting skills. "You're forgetting something, Tsu. All Might doesn't hurt himself." Deku looked over and sighed in relief. She never knew if All Might told him what she saw, but she made sure not to give away her position. Everyone started to talk about how flashy some of their quirks are. "Well, if any of our classmates have pro quirks, it's Todoroki and Bakugo," Kirishima exclaimed, pointing out the 2 boys. "Sure, but Bakugo's always angry, so he'll never be that popular." Himiko laughed at the statement out loud as Bakugo sprung up from his seat, staring at the frog-like girl and the chaotic blonde one. "What did you say?" "I'll kick your ass." "Oh please, you're as intimidating as a chihuahua." "Stop the bus right now. I'm going to blow you up and regret the day you were born, you bastard." Deku was frightened, thinking Bakugo would blow up the bus. Before we get back into the story, I would like to say that we've got a second channel called Anime Deep Dive. Anime Deep Dive goes over the hard facts of the anime presented. Now, in case you guys didn't know, we have a third channel called Anime Theory. Anime Theory mainly focuses on a large variety of mind-boggling anime theories. If you are interested in content like this, please go check the description below or click the eye icon in the top right corner. Now with that out of the way, let's get back into the story. The students arrived at the USJ with 13 waiting for them. She welcomed them with open arms. Going into the training facility to Toga, it looks like a wonderland, something like an amusement park. She was in love while everyone was in a lower state of awe. All Might wasn't able to join mainly due to his schedule being backed up, but Deku and Toga had their suspicion that he used up all his energy. The class of 1 was ready to start their exercises, but then a dark hole emerged from the fountain with a hand reaching out. Aizawa was weary of what happened. Villains started to emerge and surround the fountain. Aizawa cautioned the students to stay back. He put on his glasses and stepped forwards. A man with many hands and a bird-like creature came out, intimidating and scary. Toga smiled. Maybe it was because of how nervous she is. But something made her smile. She eyed each criminal coming out of the portal and clenched her fist. The portal formed into a man of sorts. Eraserhead released the binding of his scarf and it exploded. He jumped into the fray. Landing on the ground, he ran towards 3 villains using his ability to neutralize their quirks. They were in shock of what had hindered them. Aizawa used his scarves like a whip, cracking them and gabbing the 3. He pulled them together forcefully and had them use their body weight against them by smacking right into each other. The rest of the other villains were like fodder for him. It's a pleasure to meet you. We are the League of Villains. I know it's impolite, but we decided to invite ourselves into this haven of justice to say hello. Besides, isn't this a fitting place for All Might, the symbol of peace, to take his last breath? I believe he was supposed to be here today. Yet I see no sign of him. All well, in the end I suppose it doesn't matter. He raised his arms and the class kept their guard up. Bakugo and Kirishima jumped over to the man to attack, causing a massive explosion. You live up to your school's reputation, but you should be more careful, children. Otherwise someone might get hurt. He emerged, but 13 cautioned the kids to stay away. But a black cloud surrounds them all. The villain opened portals around the place, dropping different students in different places. Toga was tossed onto a cruise ship. She rose up to see Tsu and Deku near them. Hey, over here guys. She saw a couple of villains try and surround them, but Asui was quick, grabbing the boy with her tongue and swimming quickly to the boat. Toga ran over and extended an arm to help them get up, but the frog hero Froppy used her tongue to save Deku and drop him on the boat first. Froppy jumped up and grabbed the girl's hand. Himiko pulled her into the boat and they all fell in, separating themselves from the villains. You saved my life, Asui. I told you to call me Tsu. She corrected the boy. This is turning out to be a terrible day of class. This is pretty crazy, but then again this is kind of fun. You're weird. Himiko giggled, but then she looked around to see that they were surrounded. Asui noticed this too, so she put on a defensive stance. But they aren't coming up to the ship yet. Izuku's brain lit like a light bulb. I don't think they know what quirks we have, or they would have come up and attacked. They're being smart and playing it safe. You're right. They don't know that my quirk is water-based. We should talk quirks then. Obviously I can jump high and cling to pretty much any wall. Of course, there is my tongue, which I can stretch out about 20 meters. She thought of anything else that could be useful, but she thought of one other thing. Oh yeah, I can also spit out into my stomach to clean it. That's not really helpful. Deku said I can use my quirk to punch things, but unfortunately I'll break something if I'm not careful. What about you, Toga? I can take people's blood and turn into them. Deku smiled, seeing how useful that quirk can be in stealth environments. It's not really useful in this situation, but I can kick butt. The two of them stared at Himiko, judging whether or not she's being serious or not. But regardless, they needed to regroup with the others. They decide to have a plan where Tsu grabs the two of them and jumps up in the air while Deku flicks his index finger with his full strength to make a whirlwind and incapacitate the villains in the water. They all landed in the water and swam to the surface. The 3 students witnessed Aizawa defeated, and on the floor, the large blue bird man smacked Aizawa on the ground like a ragdoll, the blood shooting out of his skull and body. Toga saw this, felt her chest become heavy. Seeing her teacher like this, vulnerable and alone, so innocently damaged, she formed a smile, but she wasn't enthusiastic of what she saw. She was terrified of what would happen to him. Almost like she needs to protect him, she looked over to Midoriya with a smile. I need to help. I need to get in there. We need to get in there. I know, but we need a plan. If we don't have one, we could die. I don't care, she exclaimed. The girl saw how Tsu was a bit of a coward, but she's scared. Deep down she understood, but she was too desperate. Midoriya tried to grab her arm to not let her do anything rash, but she took her arm back in a frenzy. Get off of me. Like a mad dog, she stared at him with crazy eyes, but she saw what she was doing. She needed to be rational. She closed her eyes and took a deep breath. I know what to do. The two concerned nodded and let her off. She left the two briefly and scouted the area in a hiding place. She saw one villain by himself and she snuck up behind him. The girl grabbed the man's mouth and stuck her tiny needles over in his skin and pricked some needles on his back to gain his blood. She felt the transfusion happen and felt warm. She let go before taking too much and knocked him upside the head with her left fist. She grabbed his jacket and wore it, but she also took the opportunity to take off his jeans and wear them too. The girl then transformed herself into the villain and fully formed into him. She hid the body by her hiding place and walked over to the group of villains holding down Aizawa and kicking him. She stood by them and said, "Hey guys, there's a couple of kids there by the giant landslide. We need some help." The group of idiotic villains smiled and ran towards the fray. Shigaraki questioned Toga in disguise. "Why aren't you running with them? You're in the way." She smirked as the villain and her eyes met his, even covered with a hand. She walks over to him. She stood by Aizawa while he was on the floor bloody and looks up. "I mean, those kids are pretty strong. I don't know if I can even beat them using my quirk." Shigaraki sped to Himiko as the villain and let out his hand. She dodged it and landed a clean punch to his jaw. The hand on his face left while Deku and Froppy stood in awe, confused but realizing who punched the villain. Himiko made the villain fall on the ground with blood coming from his mouth. "Don't you dare touch him, you piece of shit."